All right, welcome to episode 38 of the At Bat Podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez. I am joined by Miles Porter and Chris Pennant. How are we doing today, guys? We'll start with you, Miles. How are we doing?
Hey man, doing good. Feels good to be back. Feels
Oh
good to
yeah,
be
first
back
show of
back with the
2023 for
boys.
you, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
you both of
yeah,
you guys, right?
Yeah,
yeah. I'm
man.
happy. I'm happy to be back. 2023, ready for another fun year of baseball. We're already off to a very interesting start around the league in
Mhm.
2023. So I look forward to getting into it.
How you doing, Chris?
Pretty good. About the same as Miles said. I don't know how fun the year is going to be personally, I guess, but I guess we'll get into some of that on the show.
Yeah,
We'll see.
with Chicago baseball, it's kind of up in the air. Like you don't know whether to go back and it. Sure, the White Sox might have a brighter outlook in the sense of standings wise, and they have a chance, to obviously a good chance to make the postseason. The Cubs, it's like we'll see. You got a bunch of what ifs, and we'll see.
Right.
But and we'll definitely get into it. I mean, we got a lot to look forward to this year, especially the next few months. We got World Baseball Classic, which want to do a special on that, and then of course previewing the season and giving our MVP predictions, stuff like that. So we'll for sure that those episodes are going to be pretty badass. So we'll get into that. But first up, I know wanted to get into this since of course Miles and Chris have not been on the show so far in this month. So we'll start with you, Miles, on just your overall thoughts on the Cubs signings over the last month. Wanted to hear what you had to say. When it comes to the Hosmer signing, the Drew Smiley re-signing, the Mancini deal. It's a lot. Cubs are doing a lot of stuff. Have been doing a lot of things this offseason. And even some people have called it. Some people have said that they're one of the winners of the offseason, just in the sense of like they went out and got guys and whatever. But again, like I said, it's a definition of what if with the season, with these players, if Bellinger can do this, if Mancini can, do this or whatever. There's a lot of question marks and still a lot of holes when you look into, if we're not, if we're going to be honest when it comes to pitching and stuff like that. But what are your overall thoughts on the moves that they made in the last month?
Very proud. I'm very
Mhm.
proud for the most part. I really like the depth that we have right now. I think when you look at Hosmer and you look at Mancini, I don't think I don't I don't think these are guys who are going to. I think one of these players might get shipped off in a year or two, especially
Mhm.
with the emergence of Matt Mervis coming up soon. We know he's
Mhm.
coming up soon. I think he almost has the ability to kind of push both of those guys out of the first base position, kind of just leaving one DH. But in the meantime, super happy with how the Cubs have gone about adding depth to the bullpen, offensively, just being as solid as possible. Very proud of this team. I'm still, and I was talking about this with my dad the other day. I still don't understand what the logic is in letting Wilson walk. I think Tucker Barnhart is a solid addition.
Mhm.
Um, but as you do research as to why the Cubs were really adamant about letting Wilson go, and not a lot of it makes sense. And I think with him going to the Cardinals, I think that's going to bite the Cubs in the butt. I really do. Um, I don't know. I think for me that's my biggest question mark. I'm a firm believer that if Wilson were to still be on this ball club, leading kind of this reemerged ball club, like the possibility, I would have been more solid about the Cubs being a contender this year. Um, Now, granted, I do believe that they are going to be a contending team, but I do believe that if Wilson was behind the dish, I think that he just adds another element of competitiveness to this ball club. And like I said before, Barnhart and Gomes are two great catchers, amazing framing, great at calling games. I just think Wilson is. I just don't agree with him. I don't agree with the Cubs not bringing him back and wanting to push him out so badly. I think that's going to come back and bite us down the line in ways that we us as Cubs fans probably don't even want to think about.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, right? Like, so going into it, I mean, I knew he wasn't gonna re-sign with us, but um, just the fact that he went to the Cardinals, it was a whole like it hit me differently because I was just like, man, like this. As much as I knew he was gonna leave, like the fact that he went to the Cardinals now, And the fact that he wanted to stay here and the Cubs didn't want to keep him, that storyline, like, if let's say the Cubs are able to put together a competitive season, they're in July and August playing competitive games against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy's going to be playing with the chip on his shoulder, and it's just going to be, just, headline stuff right there for all over baseball. But I mean, hey, Chris, I want your take on the Cubs, just the way that they, their off season in general, right? Like, they have a lot of guys that have something to prove. And real quick on the, as you said, Matt Mervis, Miles, I was going to say that's the one thing I told Gabe last episode was I was a little surprised that they went with, that they signed either, Hosmer or Mancini, like the fact that they signed both, because I feel like it kind of pushes Mervis maybe to, like, a June debut or like a July debut, depending on how Hosmer is doing. I don't expect Hosmer to, I honestly, with the way Hosmer's been playing the last few years, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't finish the year on the team. But we'll see. But yeah, Chris, your thoughts on the Cubs and their offseason overall?
I think they've done very well. Like we talked about, they picked up a few prove-it guys, Cody Bellinger, Trey Mancini, and guys who basically can hold things down before you look to put together your competitive, more homegrown side of things. Picking up Dansby Swanson, he's one of those guys that you want to have lead your franchise into the future. I'm not quite sold on him being that type of leader yet, but he kind of grew up with a team that had some veterans around him in Atlanta, with Freeman, with the other guys that they had. Even Max Fried had put in some years by then, but they kind of brought each other up together. And he is a good face to have, even if he's not your face of your franchise. And then, like I said, Mancini, Bellinger, even Eric Hosmer are guys to hold things down for the year or two and prove if they've got a couple of years left, then they sign them to another deal. And Jameson Taillon, I think, is a good kind of mid-risk signing for your pitching staff, to a guy who can do it, but he's been around and he comes at a lower cost than maybe Carlos Rodon and somebody else who was on the market. So I think the Cubs had a very good free agency period.
Yeah, no, and that is true, especially, with Swanson. I've heard a lot of people say that, he's not, if you're like a World Series contender or postseason contender, if he's your best player, then your team hasn't gotten there yet. And I mean, he has showed potential of being, a great player and has had big moments in October, all that, whatever. But yeah, he does have a long way to go. And I think that his deal says a lot about the type of player he is, because a lot of people thought that he was going to get that, in mid 200s, or at least maybe what he expected, I should say. But he ended up getting, that 177. So we'll see for sure. But anyways, shifting now into the south side of Chicago, a lot of stuff going on there. Not all of it good. And we'll get the bad stuff out of the way first, Chris, with the whole Mike Clevinger situation, of course. Who they just signed, I feel like it was probably December or something like that. It was winter meetings or something. I think they might have signed him. And now, there was a woman, I think her name was Olivia Feinstead. She accused him of physical and emotional abuse toward her and her 3 children, and herself included. So yeah, it's a rough situation. But what are your thoughts on that, Chris? I mean, we were talking a little bit about it before the show, but there's a lot of this going around, I guess, in the MLB, and it's one of those things that baseball's on, one of the main headliners recently, and it's not for good reason.
Well, just what do I think about the Mike Clevinger bit of it?
Yeah, just like the whole situation overall. Yeah.
I've thought about this, and the White Sox have a ever shrinking time frame to do the right thing and let the man go. Now, I know that there's some labor contractual things that they have to go through that I'm not versed in, but you need to have him off your roster, because if Mike Clevinger stays on the team, I'm not seeing any White Sox anything this year. Like, everybody has their line, and the line may move no matter what people might say in the public sphere of, oh, you can't do this, this is wrong, you can't do this, this is wrong. What this man did was wrong. Like, everything that's come out that we've seen, choked Miss Feinstead, he spit on their child that they had together, tobacco juice, like some Undertaker WWE type stuff. That you can't let that go. And Major League Baseball has something that they need to root out, And it's going to take a lot longer than this year, the next year, the next year after that. But that's just for me. So if Mike Clevinger stays on the team with the minimal amount of things that the White Sox have done in the offseason already, that's beside the point. The tickets, the way that they are like nickel and diming customers now by splitting the sections in half, that's beside the point. But Mike Clevinger needs to be off the team, or the White Sox have one less fan. Simple.
Yeah, no, and it's the thing too with with the whole Trevor Bauer situation, is we connected to that as well. I feel like it just took a long time for either the team or MLB to do anything. And then, the whole, suspension was, they minimized the suspension at the end for Bauer. Yeah, I don't know. And it's one of those things where it's just the discourse online is always just, I always just see it. It's always just negative. It's people that saying, like, oh, like, good that this is all a sham, like, Bauer, this and that. And it's like people like don't even know like the whole story, let alone, either side story. Like they're just siding with this guy because he plays baseball. Like it doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, well, hopefully everything gets resolved. Miles, do you have any comments on the situation overall though?
Oh my gosh, nothing that Chris hasn't said.
Mm-hmm.
White Sox already got enough going on within that organization. You don't need that. Any sort of toxic anything just should not be there. Guys like that cannot have a job. They cannot. So, hopefully the White Sox make the right decision on that soon. And really just this is an organization that has to figure it out, because I think that it has been very lackluster for many reasons. Kind of going back to what Chris is talking about, the whole ticketing thing. I don't understand. So hopefully they make the right decision sooner rather than later. They better be careful with those ticket prices, because let me tell you something, Sox fans will not show up, and that's no disrespect to White Sox fans. It's just that they just if it's not a good product on the field, Sox fans aren't going to show up. That's nothing against White Sox fans. It was like, hey, if I'm going to drive all the way out here, or whatever the case may be, give me a good team to watch. Give me a reason to come out here and come to the stadium and watch this ball club. So hopefully they figure it out soon.
Yeah, and that's it's a good point. I mean, it's one of those things where the past couple of seasons have been rocky, or the latest, like for the White Sox, whether it be LaRusse and all that stuff. Like this is the last thing they need is more negativity, especially coming from the fan base. And this would just add to it. So yeah, and the ticketing thing. I mean, that's a whole different thing for sure that I've heard about. That's just ridiculous. But we'll get to more positive side of the White Sox here. And Chris, I wanted your take on, and I asked Gabe this last episode, just what he thought about Andrew Benintendi's press conference, and also just the fact that he's wearing number 23. Chicago's got a new 23. In Andrew Benintendi. He got a lot to follow up with the number 23,
yeah,
but not.
He has to live up to the legend of Vince Velasquez. And you know what? Honestly, there is something to that, because considering how whack last year was, Vince actually did a pretty good job. So if Andrew Benintendi can be as good or better than Vince Velasquez, it'll still be a bad deal. No, it won't be a bad deal. It's just... It's so annoying that that's the highest contract in team history. I think that's the problem. And so that's really nothing against Andrew Benintendi. It can't be, but you want him to, I would like him to hit more than 5 home runs. That would be ideal. And to be maybe, 75% of the Andrew Benintendi that we got glimpses of in Boston. That would be nice. I will admit I didn't get a chance to see the press conference, because he's always struck me as a pretty boring dude. I
can't disagree.
It is what it is. He's a baseball player. There's no disrespect to Miles, but Miles, most baseball players, they listen to Morgan Wallen and they get their shit done, and then it's like, I'll be real. Ian Happ came into the place where I work last week, and
who did?
Ian Happ came into the place where I work, because I was checking at the door, and I was like, oh, and I looked at him and I was like, oh, that's Ian Happ. 1, he's shorter than I thought he was. 2, he was a nice, easygoing dude, and the best baseball players you get pretty much are that nice, easygoing dudes. if Andrew Benintendi's a not nice dude, he'll still be a mad boring dude. Even the nice dudes are fairly boring. So be boring and hit 15 home runs. That's what I want for you, my guy.
You don't like him on the not a fan of the Compound podcast, Chris?
I'm not even. I don't even know what that
is. Because he does John Boy. He does a podcast for John Boy Media. Ian Happ does. So
shout out to John Boy getting that bread. I will say that. I like him. I haven't seen many of his guys yet, but they are the same thing. Kind of stretches out to a lot of people who talk about baseball. Yeah. Other than us, they can get mad milk toast. It's like white bread Jim Cramer. Is a lot of baseball talk shows that are not this one. The yelling is to make it seem like they're excited.
I mean, yeah, I cannot.
Did we lose Miles? Did I lose Miles?
Man down.
My bad.
Are amazing.
Man,
but you know what I'm talking about. Like everybody saw Chris Russo and decided, that's the winning formula right there, and that is not really easily imitated.
Chris Russo, yeah.
I mean, there's not much on MLB Network that you're gonna be excited, like super excited to watch. But when Chris Russo comes on, either the TV's going on mute or it's just turning off altogether. So, yeah. We could definitely do a whole episode on the roast of MLB hosts for sure. But Chris, another thing I wanted to ask you about was the sense of also with Eloy Jimenez and the DH, conversation. I wanted to ask you, do you think that they are going to go all in and put him at DH, or is it still something that's up in the air? Because they're obviously not going to say yes right now. But what do you think is going to happen in that situation?
I think they might waffle, but it's hard to say exactly how. I think he'll DH a good amount of the time, but there will be times where Eloy still plays in left field, which, 2 or 3 years ago, that would have made more sense without the universal DH. Mm-hmm. But I think because of the fact that he's now one of the mainstays on the team, he has a little bit of say, and he wants to play some left field, and you don't lose much by putting Eloy in left field for, 15 games a season. But I think they're going to look to have him be the everyday designated hitter. That's been a while in coming. It's a better idea to have. He wasn't the worst guy in the outfield, but that's pretty much just because Gavin Sheets got extended time and right. Mm-hmm. And it's better to protect his health. It really is. And I hope he understands that, because he has always been a key cog in that engine as they've designed it. So it's better to, I think that they're gonna request that Eloy is the mainstay at DH.
Oh, what do you think about that situation? 2 miles as well as for Eloy Jimenez, and do you think he starts the season as a DH, or and where would you like to see him, if anything?
Yeah, I think I think I would prefer to see him in the DH spot more than anything. He's we're talking about a guy who gets injured a good amount. And his bat, he's lethal. He's lethal at the plate. So I think it makes sense to pluck him in the DH spot for the majority of the season. Maybe have him maybe a spot start in left field here and there, but I wouldn't put him in the outfield a lot. You don't want a guy like that. You don't want to risk a guy like that getting hurt too consistently. So I think the DH spot works. It is, as a hitter, for someone who is experienced, being a DH only, it is definitely it can be frustrating because you feel like you're only playing one part of the game. You kind of feel isolated from the rest of the game. Sometimes it is hard to get in a rhythm. That's why I look at players like David Ortiz. For him to be as consistent as he was throughout his career as just a DH is something truly incredible, because you do feel like you are only a part of one aspect of the game. So I think he does have a right to have a good say in that. I think you should pluck him out there a few times, a few starts here and there, because that kind of gets him off his feet a little bit. That kind of gets him in a little bit more of a routine. So I wouldn't start him every game. Like Chris said, maybe 50. Yeah. I mean,
if you want to say less, because fewer games might be easier to have him out and left.
Yeah, because I look at the White Sox and I see like we're kind of walking on eggshells with this team. There's not a lot of room for error anymore. There's not a lot of room for injury or for guys to underperform or whatever the case may be. Yeah, yeah. I think I don't know. I think it depends on how he performs. Within the first month or whatever the case may be. Maybe you move it around a little bit. And for me, I'd maybe start him for like 25 games. That's what I'd be looking at right now in the field. But that can always change. I cannot stand the coaches and managers who look at young players like this and already determine this guy cannot play in the field. I've had high school coaches like that. I've seen other coaches like that. That's bull crap. Stop being like that. You know who you are. I'm calling you out. So don't give up on this guy playing in the field. But also take it easy. And yeah, I'm not gonna say names, but
hey man, you know what? We got some cutting room floor time. That's all I'm saying.
We're hot today. I just noticed, man. I think maybe it's because you guys haven't been on for a while. You hit a boiling point. You guys are like, Chris is like, I gotta bake all the announcers out there. MLB Network dudes. Yeah, Miles already trying to bake the coaches. It makes sense. I feel for sure. Got to let off some steam. I will say this, Miles, you inspired me because as a guy that on my softball team, I play catcher, which is basically the DH spot.
Yeah.
You inspired me to keep trying at the field now. Okay, so
man, go play first base, Saul. Go play first base, coach. Put me in center. All right.
I remember once we were it was a blowout. We were winning by a lot in the last inning. The guy who I guess we deemed as the coach, he's just like, yeah, let's just play all the different spots. And I was like, I'm gonna go to the left, and I'm just hoping the ball doesn't go there the whole inning, right? And guess what? No ball went over there, and I was celebrating like I was like I just won the World Series going into the day. I was like, I didn't make a mistake. Let's go. You definitely inspire me. I will not give up on my fielding dreams for sure.
Don't, Saul. Don't do it.
But one of the and you guys, if you guys are coming in hot, this next topic for sure carries a lot of weight with the robo umps talk. That the people have been talking about that. People have been talking a lot about this over the last couple of weeks.
Sorry.
And it's no, I get you. I've been seeing a lot of that, man. I mean, trust me. So yeah. And it's funny because
I'm starting off the year hot.
Exactly. Yeah, you gotta start. Yeah, exactly. Gotta go in. Yeah. But I saw a lot of people and it's funny because it's all the mostly the people that I see is really just the people that don't look at the details, right? They'll just see that I get it. If you don't want any type of robo ump or any type of monitoring, I get that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just that you don't like it, right? But there's some people that are just you're taking out the human element, and it's like if you look at the details, they're not in either of the proposals or either of the things that they're doing, I should say. They're not eliminating the umpire altogether. So I think with the one way they're doing it, I know that they're kind of doing like a challenge system where you can challenge, I think, up to 3 pitches a game. And then the other one that I think again I think they're just testing it. I don't think they would run this in the MLB. The one that I think they would run in MLB is the challenge one. I'm assuming. But the other one is the one where they kind of just let they let the robot ump call the game and the umpire is there in case they need them. So that's the one that I understand is less favorite there. But we'll start with you, Miles. If you want to go for it, man. I mean, what overall thoughts on this and just the implementation of it in the minor leagues and all that?
Yeah, I think this is, and okay, so here's the problem with this talk about this, because the other day I was on YouTube and I was watching a video of umpires making bad calls, and it fired me up. So here we go. Yeah, I mean, for me, since I was a kid, I'm like, at what point are we gonna do something to kind of correct some of these calls that some of these umpires make? Because you could just look it up with every umpire. There's a good handful of umpires who are very, very good. But the inaccuracies of their officiating of these games it's just not fair. It's just not. The human element is important. That interaction of making a mistake, that's important as well. But in the game where these umpires make mistakes, and not only do they make a mistake, do you get rung up for calling them on the mistakes. At what point can you really advocate for yourself? It's almost like you K'd on a bad call, but you can't do anything about it, and you being upset about fighting for your career, or whatever the case may be, fighting not to get traded, whatever it is. At what point do we hold these umpires accountable, or we have to look to an alternative to sort of correct the mistakes of what's been going on over the past few years? The game being slow is not just a problem. Mm-hmm. The umping, a lot of what goes on is really bad. Angel Hernandez a few years ago, when there was the Red Sox and the Yankees during the ALCS, that's bad. That is terrible. That is something that should never happen with all the resources that are at the disposal of the MLB. You got all this time in the world to change a baseball during the season, giving us all kinds of different baseballs for more home runs, less home runs, more groundouts. But you're not going to put forth the effort to hold these umpires accountable because of the union. Saul, it's just unfair. And this is my passion, speaking as a baseball fan and a baseball player, that it's not fair to these guys who are out there trying to compete. The fans are not there to watch the umpires. The umpires are there to do their job and officiate the game fairly. That has not been the case with a lot of these umpires over the past decade and even longer. So I'm all for it. I don't think the robot only and the umpires making the calls based off what he hears in his ear. I'm totally against that. But challenging pitches during the game, I think that's very fair. But I mean, some of these umpires, I don't know if 3 pitches is enough. You might need to hey, let me get like 10 of those things this game. If that ball didn't hit the dirt and he didn't call strike 3, and I don't like it. He's not watching me. He's watching left field. So, I think I'm for it. I'm for it for sure. I don't want to take the umpires completely out of it, but there has to be some correction that goes on. Because they're not getting any better. They're very stubborn. If you say something, you get thrown out of a game. If you look at them, you get thrown out of a game. If you sneeze or blink in the direction, you get a warning or thrown out of the game. It's bullcrap, and I hate that about baseball. Stop it.
Yeah, no, hey, 100%. I mean, you hit on a lot, and I think that, and a lot of people, or a lot of players, I should say, have been saying that the interactions with the umpire, positive or negative, that they like that stuff. So, I mean, Ian Happ did say, I think they were talking about it at the convention. He did say also, like, he likes, looking back at and asking him, hey, where was that, or, whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, that I think that will for sure stay, and I think they'll do the challenging. But and again, also that when you give the team an option of 3 pitches, of 3 challenges, 3 opportunities, it adds to the strategy. So you know what I mean? So if for a game that's losing the shift, and a lot of people that are against it, they're like, oh, well, it's part of the game, this and that, or whether, like, how, like, they limited the mound visits and all that, and they're like, oh, you're taking away this. Well, here you go. They're adding, for you guys, they're adding strategy. There you go, more. But Chris, I wanted your take on the whole situation as well on it. What did you think about the whole robo stuff?
It's weird because I think there's so many areas where automation is coming in and replacing human jobs. And I've never really typically been in favor of it because you have fewer people working. Now, the articles that I read said that MLB was looking for jobs for people to operate basically this system. So I don't know that much about what it takes to operate the system. And there's very good evidence to have, robot umps, whatever you have, just pitch tracking technology that will make these calls in favor of guys like Angel Hernandez, or, even good umpire. I think it's less about the Angel Hernandez and more about the fact that even the good or very best umpires still make mistakes. Like Jim Joyce is a pretty solid umpire, but he made an error that cost somebody a place in the record books. And that might not have happened had you had an umpire, a robot umpire, making a call at first base. So even if it's not my favorite idea, it's one of those things that I think that it's silly to argue against it because it's already coming. There's some color that's added to the game because of the fact that you have these moments, but it doesn't always make the game better. So I'm not exactly in favor of it, but I'm not wholly against it, if that is a possible answer.
Yeah, I mean, no, I get it, because I mean, there's a lot of I mean, and you've been watching the game for longer than us, and I mean, even longer than Miles has been playing it, so I understand in the sense of I feel like even where I'm at, not as like as much as I don't mind it. It definitely is it's a mixed bag of emotions when you first hear about it and at first think about a change in the game, right? It's just the way it is, especially if you're just used to something and the way it goes. Regardless, there's going to be something strange about it. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's one of those things where people also, what some people don't understand is, look, they could still take it away. They try it, it doesn't work, they take it away. So hopefully everything works out for the best, and they're able to, this is able to make a positive difference in the game. But I wanted to move on to some other stuff that's been going around the league, like one of the biggest trades that happened, one of the biggest trades of the offseason, I think, and that's of the Twins and the Marlins making a deal, sending Luis Arráez to the Miami Marlins, and the Marlins are sending back Pablo Lopez, as well as Jose Salas and Byron Churio. That's Minnesota's getting them. But what did you guys think about that deal? I mean, this deal is one, honestly, I still feel like, Miami might have given up a lot, way more than I thought they would for this guy, because look, I think he's good. He's an all-star. He's, 25, 26 years old, but I don't think it's going to make a difference for the Marlins. Obviously, it's not. I don't think it's going to make a difference for the Marlins because I saw a lot of people saying that this could be a win-win. I don't think so. Because this guy's probably going to be in Miami for a few years, and then leave. Because the way that organization is, I think Pablo Lopez is going to make the Twins way better. They still still have a little bit to go, but I think they'll be competing at least. But yeah. And we'll start with you, Chris, because obviously this impacts the AL Central. So, what are your overall thoughts? I think, like I said, I don't. I think everyone's high on Luis Arraez, but I'm not super as convinced as everyone else. But what did you think overall on the deal?
I think he'll have a bit tougher time of it in Marlins Park, even though they moved the fences in and right field is a little bit better for him. But he's a guy who hits all fields. But he had a lot of extra base hits last year. That's what drove his value up, as well as his batting eye being just as good as it was. On the face of it, yeah, got him out of the division. Fantastic. So as long as the White Sox give up Mike Clevinger, I can be super happy. For the Marlins, I'm a little bit the Pablo Lopez, I don't know. It does on its face, even with the minor leaguers that they gave up to. I would think that they got the better end of the deal, but I'm worried because I wanted Kim Ng to succeed in this spot, and she has not been able to put a winning, competing team out on the field yet. They have Sandy Alcantara. It's great. That's fantastic, but I don't see the pieces coming to fruition quite yet. Like, this is the time for them to win like 80 plus games and at least put a scare into the division, if not make the playoffs. And I don't know if anybody's picking the Marlins to win 80 plus games. So I think this might be a name move. It looks good to solidify the top of their lineup, but something about it makes it seem like a name move, and it's not a big name to go out and get. And you know what's weird? As the Marlins have not been good since they changed their name. Like, the only time they've ever made the playoffs as the Miami Marlins was that 2020 season where they went 2-0.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about, Chris. So
No,
they
they should have stayed the Florida Marlins, bro. They should have stayed the Florida Marlins.
No, I'm saying because I you know, even if it was 2020, I still can't believe they beat us. They swept us.
Bro, you gotta eat that one. That was wild.
At Wrigley Field.
At Wrigley too. I don't care if it was empty. But yeah. Anyway.
Like, I still don't think that the Cubs should have broken it up, but man, that was an argument to break that up.
That one but that was that
I should not get into that tonight.
Oh man. But I mean you're right, and Miami hasn't they haven't done much since that, and it sucks because they everyone constantly says it too. It's Miami would be a great place to play, or is a great place to play. I mean, I think they're great uniforms. I mean, I think I feel like
honestly they are. They really
are. And a great stadium. I mean, so I mean, I don't understand that, but hey, look, I hope that Luis Arráez is able to get better and be a better player, because he's a good player. I'm just saying that for the like, I feel like how everyone's treating him, they're like, oh my god, Miami got like a, they're acting like they got like that Tatis or something. Like, dude, like, calm down. Like, it's not that deep. So what did you think, Miles? Like, what like on that deal overall?
I don't know if that's really it's a powerful move on the Marlins part. I look at this roster, I still don't believe that they're at that point where they can even somewhat compete. Mm-hmm. And I've seen articles here and there on the internet about how Marlins can absolutely shock the world. I'm not counting them out, but do we know who's in their division? Do we know what the Phillies just did? Do we know what the Mets just did? The moves the Phillies just made after being are you kidding me? They're not there yet. They're not there. And I think talent-wise, they have the talent. I think developmentally, they're not there yet. But who's to say that's not going to change in like a year or 2 years, because this team is so young. I think that they're still missing a couple of veteran pieces that can really help. Now, when I see Gene Segura there, great. Awesome. That's a great veteran presence to have, really mentoring the infielders. You got Jazz Chisholm moving to the outfield, supposedly. So I think when you look at the trajectory of where this team can go, there's a lot to look forward to. But currently, they're not there yet. But I do believe that they can get there, because I like their system. I think they have a young, talented system. I have a few buddies that play for them, in a matter of fact, who I think will be on the big stage anywhere between 3 to 4 years from now. So I do believe in the Marlins. Soon, though, not really. But this could be a move that benefits them a little more down the line.
Yeah, and as to what Chris said as well, is like, we want Kim to succeed in this situation, and hopefully the deal works out for her as well. But it off on paper, especially when it comes to WAR comparisons, because I know people did, they were, people were doing comparisons of how much value is going to the Twins, and it just doesn't look very good at the moment. But hopefully they're able to figure something out for sure. But you're right in that sense, is that the Marlins for sure that's why a lot of people think that they should just do away with the Jazz Chisholms, or the Sandy Alcantaras, just because of the sense of where they're at and where the other teams are at. Like, it's like they're not gonna compete, and they're not gonna go out there and get other guys that are gonna help them compete. I don't see it. At least, I mean, what do you think, Chris? Because I don't think they have any opportunity to compete when you have the Phillies, Mets, and Braves in there. They just go all in. It's just ridiculous.
You gotta put the money up. You gotta put the bread up. I think that's the thing. I mean, once they got Derek Jeter out, that at least helped. Or once he left of his own accord after basically selling them to the Yankees for a couple years, that helped. But they're gonna have to put up money, and they can't just rely on the fact that they have a very nice ballpark in a very baseball friendly city. And that's what they brought in Kim Ng. That's what they brought in, an
Yeah.
established baseball mind who'd had so much time in front offices. It wasn't just a diversity hire. Like, they brought her in to change the organizational mandate and become a winner. So they're going to have to be smart with it. They have a model to look towards about, however many miles northwest on the other coast in Tampa Bay. They've got a model to look at and see how you can build from the ground up in success. But like you said, those guys that they have are only getting older every day. So you've got to start young and establish from there. Even if you go a route where you only hold on to those guys until their late 20s, early 30s, and then have the next crop ready to succeed. But they're going to have to go through the draft, through international scouting, I think, to make their headway in what's going to be a really tough division. All those teams you mentioned, and even some of the teams you didn't. I think the Nationals are going to find a way to rebound, because they've got a pretty good front office too. So the Marlins can't just count on surprising the entire world every 10 or 15 years anymore. They have got to find people to hang their hat on and build around them immediately.
Yeah, and you're right. I wish they could, or I wish they would just go out and spend money and get some guys, because the pitching is ridiculous, right? You have Sandy Alcantara. I know they gave away, they traded away Pablo Lopez, but if Pablo Lopez didn't go anywhere, and you still had him, and you still have Sixto Sanchez, who has been struggling to get healthy, and they have so much talent there, that it's a shame that they might end up dealing those guys. But hopefully Kim is able to put some out of the bag, and as well as the ownership when it comes to the money. So want to move on to our last topic of the show, which is the Hall of Fame, and just what you guys thought of Scott Rolen getting in. And again, going back to this is not necessarily something that a pick that's going to make headlines either. It's not not a sexy pick, but want to get your guys' opinions on this. It's a guy who finished his career with a 55 OPS, over 300 home runs, over 2,000 hits. We'll start with you, Miles. What did you think about this? This is a guy. This is one of those guys we grew up watching. He was on the Phillies, the Cardinals for a long time. Smacking hits off those mid 2000s Cubs teams. So, what did you think? This guy who played elite defense, and was able to get in the Hall because.
Yeah, I think it's very fitting. I think Scott Rolen had a very almost, and I'm really happy that he was recognized, because I still felt that he was almost underappreciated still during his career. I know you remember those Cubs Cardinals battles back in the mid early 2000s. He'd come to Wrigley, and he would really hurt the Cubs pitching. And also defensively, he would just crush our dreams. So I think it's very, very, very fitting. A good amount of All-Star games under his belt as well. What a career! I'm happy that he was recognized. When I see players like him get in, I still keep my fingers crossed for Aramis Ramirez to get in as well. I think that's another talented third baseman that isn't talked about enough during his career. But Scott Rolen, amazing career, and it is almost kind of a model baseball player to look at. He was always a leader in every clubhouse that he played in, and always spoken very highly of every teammate that he had. So very fitting. I think he made me cry a couple of times as a child, but it's okay. I just hated seeing him on the Cardinals, but very fitting. So I'm very happy that he got it.
What did you think, Chris?
It's decent, I think. Scott Rolen is a solid hitter. I think he never really he was the victim of those Phillies teams that were never quite good enough. And I think I remember him being kind of looked at as a guy who couldn't get them over the line, kind of like what they. And he was much better than Pat Burrell, but I remember hearing them talked about in that same kind of sense of like Scott Rolen wasn't the guy that they needed in Philadelphia. And then he went to the Cardinals and then the Reds and had a much longer career than I think I could have imagined at that point in time. I really remember thinking that. I was like, damn, Scott Rolen is still out here getting hits in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And he was never a guy to shy away from things, which was evident in those Cardinals-Reds battles from the early part of the 2010s. So I think it was good. I think it was a good he definitely deserved to get in. Outside of that, I don't understand why Todd Helton didn't get in.
Yeah.
I really don't understand, but it's the Baseball Writers of America Hall of Fame voting. It never quite completely makes sense. So it's just weird that Scott Helton missed by that small of a percentage. Like somebody was like, nah, you know what? Somebody else didn't get voted in until their 6th year, so we are going to wait another year for Scott. Some stupid like criteria like that. So I think with the crop that they had for just Scott Rolen to make it in is still silly, but Scott Rolen deserved
it.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, you look at the rest of the list and the guys that made big jumps. You had Sheffield at 55. It's a 14% jump. Andrew Jones at the 16% jump at 58. Billy Wagner with a 17% jump there. So, yeah, no, I mean, you're right in that sense. I'm really surprised that Helton was not able to get in, but I mean, at where he's at now, I'm sure he'll be able to be a lock for next year and get in there. So hopefully that comes out to be. But definitely, I think that's a good place to wrap things up for today. With plenty of stuff coming up. We got, like I said, we got the World Baseball Classic, spring training around the corner. Like you could always smell, February pitchers and catchers reporting almost. So that's going to be something to look forward to. I want to thank Miles Porter for coming on and Chris Pennant. Want to shout out Chris's podcast, the SkyHook Podcast, that going strong right now, getting ready for the season that starts in May. And then I just saw actually on my phone, I got a notification Sky expected to make changes to ownership group on Friday.
Yeah, it's big news coming, man. Free agency's been mad spicy too. I'm sure y'all saw the De'Erica Hamby Las Vegas stuff.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot.
No, yeah, definitely. So check that out. Available on all platforms. And we'll see everybody next week. Hopefully everyone has a great week. Take it easy.